Good morning, everybody. So now that you have your design, I want to show you how to take that design and add it onto your slab of clay. So the first thing that you want to do is kind of try to center your design onto your slab of clay. And your slab of clay is one thickness of tongue depressor. And you want to kind of take that piece of paper and kind of rub along those lines. Now, if it kind of rubs out your design a little bit, that's okay. But what we're trying to do is transfer a little line from the fold on your paper onto your clay. So now you don't want it to be like crazy giant lines. So I can see them when I'm looking at this on but I can't see it on camera, but I can see it there. So now I'm going to start from the center and work my way out. So what I'm going to do is take my center and I'm going to go ahead and layer it a little bit first. I'm going to flatten this out pretty good. You can also cut your circle out of a slab if you like. That's okay too. But I'm going to take this one and then I'm going to layer my next color on it. And I'm just going to do that on my finger just a little bit. And then I'm going to take one little black dot for me and I'm going to layer that right in the middle. It's actually not black. It's actually really dark purple. But you can see how I've already started to layer that a little bit. So I'm trying to keep it as thin as I can. So when I add it onto here, it changes the shape the least amount possible. It's gonna kind of change a little bit, and that's okay. But we wanna try to keep it, the thinner you can make your pieces to start with, the less spreading it does. Now, when you use your roller, make sure it's always balanced on the sticks, and you're gonna go a little bit one direction, and then you're gonna rotate it. You're going to do a little bit another direction and then you'll rotate it. You're going to kind of keep rotating it and moving your sticks around and making sure your little roller is balanced on those sticks. Now, I know in my design I'm going to have some extra little dots and stuff in here, but I'm going to add the really teeny ones later. So now I've got this mostly all the way flat. So now I'm going to move on to the next step. Now for me, that's going to be this little teardrop shape. And again, it's really important that, you know, it's going to spread a lot. Like that little dot started off like this big and it spread out that big. So you want really tiny, tiny little pieces, okay? And you want to flatten them out as much as you can beforehand. And like I said, if you want to do them, cut them out of a slab, you can. And if you start doing something and it's not working the way you thought it was, just stop and think about it and try it again in a little bit. Because it's always better to stop and think through what you're doing than it is to just kind of plow ahead if you're not quite sure that it's doing what you want it to do, all right? So part of this whole process is just learning what the clay does. And one of the best parts of clay is that if it's not working the way you want it to, just stop and try it again, all right? Because we're problem solving as well. Okay, so now I'm gonna stick these two on first and I'm gonna go ahead and roll those flat and see how much bigger that became than this one. So it's really important that you are kind of working smaller than you think you need because it's gonna get way bigger. So if you start with something big, it's just gonna be kind of an overwhelming size. And like I said, the flatter you can start off with, the better. Okay, so I've got that one on there now. And if your design changes a little bit as you go, like try to keep it as close to your original design as possible. But if while you're doing it, you discover something that you really like, or you're like, whoa, I thought this would work, but it didn't, then you know, change it, try it. Part of this is discovering new things. Part of this process is, you know, trying things out, see how they go, see what happens when you do certain things. And, you know, discovery is an important part of life and art. So, okay, so I'm going to get those ones rolled in. Those ones are nice and flat. So now I can add in, because I have 8 sections. So I'm going to add in the next 2. Like I said, the whole project for this is layering, so it's important that we're making sure we have a nice amount of layers. So once I get these ones on here, I'm going to layer another color over the top of it, and I'm going to continue layering as we go. And I'm kind of working from the center towards the outside because I know as I do this, the slab's going to get a little bit bigger, and I might have to trim off a little bit of the yellow to make it fit, to continue to be able to fit the sticks. Because if you make your slab too big and your sticks won't sit on top of your roller won't sit on top of the sticks anymore, that can seriously mess up your project. So it's really important that we continue doing it so that it fits. So I'm going to keep adding this on. I only got 2 left for this part. All right, I'm kind of pointing it. And like I said, you know, the flatter it starts out, the less spreading it's going to do. And always work smaller than you think you need, because it spreads out way more than you think it's going to. Now, if you really want it to be super nice and neat, you can always roll out, you know, at the end, you can always roll out a really thin, skinny line and add lines on here, but that's not required. Okay, so now I've got my basic shape in the middle. Now, if I look at my design, I have another little dot in there. So I've already made those ones. And like I said, make sure that you start off with them as flat as you can, so that way they spread the least amount possible. But they are going to spread, and that's okay. So I've added on another layer here. I'm going to add those on. And see, those ones were really big. So like this one, it still shows the underneath color. That one kind of covered it up a little bit. Now, if that bothered me, I could go back in and I could add a little bit more. I could add that original color back in and then just layer it again. For me, I'm okay with that. So I'm just going to leave it like that. But I'm going to try to make sure that the rest of them do have that layer like this one. And you can always go back in and layer more. There's nothing that says you can't add more in. So we're just going to keep on layering just like we did with that first one. Now, if you have really long nails, you're going to start getting little nail marks and stuff in here. You don't want to leave those. You can for now, but you want to make sure that they're gone by the time you're done making this. So if you have really long nails, sometimes it can be a little difficult to make this nice and neat. Okay, so we've got one more little bit. All right, so here we go. Okay, so now I've got those layered. Now for me, mine aren't all the way touching. So I could have, like my design shows that they're touching. So I could have made these a little bit wider and I could have stopped and did that, but I decided that I kind of liked the way it looked. So I left that spot open in the middle. And because it spread more than I initially thought it was going to, I'm gonna add in one more layer of color on here. Oh, actually here. I gotta follow my own direction, so I'm not gonna add on that one yet because I wanna do 2 at a time across from each other. So I went for the next lightest color that I had. Whee! Okay, and see how that made a significant difference? Just adding that one little extra bit on. So I'm gonna keep doing that. So your goal for today is to get kind of a cool looking center bit. And as long as you can get a cool looking center bit today, then that's as far as you need to go today. And tomorrow we will continue adding on more. So so for me, I've got my little center here. I'm gonna add on these little extra bits, and I'm going to add on, just to add another little layer of interest. Oops, there we go. I'm gonna add on another little darker dot in the center of my little petals that I just made. So I'm gonna add on a little dot right here. So again, always kind of work across from yourself, like across from each other when you're adding on the patterns, because then when you roll it on there, it keeps everything kind of nice and even. So play with it, be creative with it, you know, start with a design and see where it takes you. And if it's not exactly the same as your design, that's okay, as long as it looks cool. So like for me, if I wanted to, you know, I'm trying to have radial balance with this, so I'm trying to make it, you know, match all the way around. Now I did, you know, these 4 dots. If I liked the way it looked just like that, I could leave it like that. I think I am going to add in those last few dots though, just because I think they look cool. But as long as it looks even, then you're good. So we're just working on, you know, we're learning skills here. We're working on our creativity, trying to, you know, make something that looks really fabulous and, you know, feels creative. Creativity is an exercise, just like everything else. You can learn to be more creative. So that's our goal. So now for today, if you get a cool looking center and you have a few different layers, at least 3 layers showing. So I've got the yellow, I've got the light purple, the medium purple, and the dark purple. As long as you have at least 3 layers and you've started the middle, then you can be done for today. All right, thanks everybody.